When Emily pushed open her apartment door and caught her husband and mother-in-law rifling through her private journals, her heart stopped. Their guilty faces stared back, clutching pages of her innermost thoughts. What were they after? And how far would they go? Before we dive into this roller coaster, drop a comment with where you're watching from. We're curious. Get ready for a story of betrayal, grit, and reclaiming what's yours. In the heart of Chicago's Lincoln Park, where trendy coffee shops hum with life and the skyline glints against Lake Michigan, Emily Harper, 32, navigates her world with the precision of a tightrope walker. A nurse at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, she's the one you want by your side in a crisis, calm, sharp, with a smile that says, "I've got this." Her days are a blur of 12-hour shifts, charting patient vitals, and dodging cafeteria food for a quick granola bar. Off-duty, she's dreaming of a life that feels less like a treadmill and more like the vision board she pinned as a newlywed. Emily's home is a cozy one-bedroom apartment she and her husband, Jake Turner, 34, bought 4 years ago. It's got charm, high ceilings, hardwood floors, but also quirks, like a leaky kitchen faucet and cabinet screaming for a remodel. On Instagram, their life looks flawless. Brunches at the Bongo Room, sunset selfies by the Adler Planetarium, and goofy dance videos that rack up likes. But behind the filter, cracks are forming. Jake, a marketing manager with a knack for pitching ideas and dodging chores, has been distant lately. His late nights at the office pile up, and when Emily tries to talk budgets or plans, he waves her off with a charming grin and a "we'll figure it out, babe." They've been married 4 years, and Emily still loves Jake, or at least the Jake she fell for. The guy who'd surprise her with late-night pizza runs, crack jokes about her terrible karaoke, and promise they'd build a life together. But lately, she's noticed the promises are thinner, the laughs fewer. Jake's glued to his phone, scrolling through work emails or dodging her questions about their savings. And then there's Diane, Jake's mother, a suburban queen with a knack for inserting herself into their lives. Diane lives 30 minutes away in Naperville, but her presence looms large: weekly family dinners, unsolicited advice on Emily's cooking, and a spare key to their apartment she borrowed and never returned. Emily's always been the planner, the one balancing their budget, scheduling repairs, and keeping their dream of a renovated kitchen alive. She's practical but hopeful, believing that with enough grit, they'll get there. Yet, living with Diane temporarily to save money has tested her patience. The air mattress in Diane's guest room is lumpy, the Wi-Fi spotty, and Diane's passive-aggressive comments, "You work so much, Emily. When do you have time for Jake?" chip away at her resolve. At the hospital, Emily's a rock, but at home, she's starting to feel like a guest in her own story. She journals to cope, scribbling thoughts in a leather notebook she keeps tucked away. Those pages hold her fears, her dreams, and the nagging question she can't shake: is this the life I signed up for? One evening, as she sips coffee on Diane's porch, staring at the suburban sprawl, her phone buzzes. It's Sarah, their old neighbor from Lincoln Park. "Em, you okay? Your apartment's been party central, loud music, strangers, the works. Thought you rented it out." Emily's stomach twists. Rented out? Yes, but not like this. Jake swore he'd handle the tenant. So why does it sound like their home, their dream, is slipping away? Asterisk, what's next for Emily? Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's find out together. Share your thoughts below. Ever felt like your life's plans were unraveling? Asterisk. Emily Harper's phone glowed in the dim light of Diane's Naperville porch, Sarah's text searing into her mind. Asterisk, your apartment's been party central, loud music, strangers, the works. Thought you rented it out. Asterisk, her pulse raced, coffee forgotten in her hand. Rented out? Yes, that was the plan. She and Jake had moved into his mother's suburban house to save for a kitchen remodel, listing their Lincoln Park apartment on a rental platform. Jake promised he'd vetted the tenant, assured her it was a quiet professional who'd respect their space. So why was Sarah, their nosy but reliable neighbor, describing a scene straight out of a college rager? Emily stormed inside, the screen door slamming behind her. Jake lounged on Diane's floral couch, scrolling through his phone, oblivious to the storm brewing. "Jake," she said, voice tight, "what's going on at our apartment?" He glanced up, his easy grin faltering. "Huh? What do you mean?" Sarah texted. "Said it's a circus, music, crowds, the whole deal. You told me the tenant was some boring accountant." Emily's hands clenched, her nurse's calm cracking under the weight of suspicion. Jake shifted, rubbing his neck, a telltale sign he was cornered. "Okay, look, it's not a big deal. It's just Lauren, your sister." Emily's voice spiked, echoing in the cramped living room. You let Lauren move into our apartment? The one we're renting out? Without telling me. She needed a place to crash. Jake mumbled, eyes darting to the floor. She's fighting with her boyfriend, needed space. It's temporary, Em. A week, maybe 2. Temporary. Emily's laugh was sharp, bitter. Jake, we're charging someone to live there. We promised peace and quiet, not your sister's personal Coachella. Diane's voice cut through from the kitchen, where she was stirring a pot of her infamous bland chili. Emily, honey, don't be dramatic. Lauren's family. You wouldn't turn your back on family, would you? Her tone dripped with that suburban judgment, the kind that made Emily feel like an outsider in her own marriage. Family. Emily spun toward her. Diane, this is our home, our savings on the line. You don't get to decide who crashes there. Jake stood, hands raised like he was calming a spooked horse. Chill. I didn't think it'd be a problem. Lauren's just sorting herself out. Sorting herself out? Emily's chest tightened. You didn't think to ask me? Your wife? The one who's been budgeting every penny for our future. Diane shuffled in, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her smile as fake as her pearl earrings. Oh, Emily, you're so high-strung. We're all just trying to help. You'd understand if you had a sister. The jab landed hard. Emily had no siblings, just a mom in Wisconsin she called weekly. But this wasn't about family. It was about trust, and Jake had just tossed theirs out the window. That night, on Diane's lumpy air mattress, Emily lay awake, the hum of suburban crickets mocking her racing thoughts. She'd agreed to this move to save money, to build a better life with Jake. She'd endured Diane's lectures, her helpful tips on being a better wife, all for a dream that now felt like a lie. The next morning, Emily drove to Lincoln Park, her hands gripping the wheel. She needed to see the damage herself. The building's lobby smelled of coffee and wet dog, a familiar comfort, but as she rode the elevator to their floor, dread coiled in her gut. When she unlocked the apartment door, the sight hit like a slap. Empty beer cans littered the counter, her favorite throw blanket was stained with pizza grease, and Lauren, Jake's 29-year-old sister, lounged on the couch in Emily's cashmere sweater, scrolling TikTok while 2 strangers vaped nearby. Emily. Lauren sat up, startled, her mascara smudged. What are you doing here? What am I doing here? Emily's voice trembled with rage. This is my home. Why are you throwing parties in it? It's not a party, Lauren scoffed, tossing her hair. Just friends hanging out. Jake said it was cool. Jake doesn't get to decide that alone. Emily snapped. She scanned the room, scratched coffee table, dishes piled in the sink. Worse, she spotted a review on the rental app from their tenant. Asterisk, place is a nightmare. Constant noise. Considering legal action. Asterisk. Emily's heart sank. They could lose thousands if the tenant bailed, maybe even face a lawsuit. All because Jake couldn't say no to his sister. She grabbed her sweater from Lauren, who rolled her eyes. God, you're so uptight. Back at Diane's, Emily confronted Jake again, this time with proof. The tenant's threatening to sue Jake. You've turned our home into a frat house. He sighed, exasperated. You're blowing this out of proportion. I'll talk to Lauren. Talk. Emily's voice cracked. You should have talked to me first. Why am I the last to know what's happening in my own life? Diane, eavesdropping as usual, chimed in. Emily, stop attacking my son. He's doing his best. Maybe if you weren't so controlling. The word stung, but Jake's silence hurt more. He didn't defend her, didn't apologize. Emily felt like she was drowning in their family drama, her voice buried under their excuses. Then, late that night, another text from Sarah, asterisk. Saw Jake and Diane at your place today. They were digging through your drawers. Looked shady. Asterisk. Emily's blood ran cold. Her journals, her bank statements, her private thoughts, everything was in that apartment. What were they looking for? And how much deeper would this betrayal go? Asterisk, will Emily uncover the truth? Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's keep going. Tell us in the comments. Ever had someone break your trust like this? Asterisk. Emily Harper's phone trembled in her hand as Sarah's text burned into her vision. Saw Jake and Diane at your place today. They were digging through your drawers. Looked shady. Her breath caught, the chilly October air outside Diane's Naperville home biting at her cheeks. Her journals, those leather-bound pages filled with dreams, doubts, and financial plans, were in that Lincoln Park apartment. So were her bank statements, her tax records, everything that mapped her life. Why were Jake and his mother snooping? What could they possibly want? Emily's mind raced as she paced Diane's porch, the suburban quiet mocking her turmoil. She and Jake had moved here to save for a kitchen remodel, a shared dream now crumbling under his lies. First, he'd let his sister Lauren turn their rented apartment into a party pad, risking a lawsuit from the tenant. Now this, her own husband and mother-in-law invading her privacy. The betrayal cut deeper than she'd expected, like a wound that kept bleeding no matter how hard she pressed. She dialed Jake, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "Jake, were you at the apartment today? With your mom?" A pause, too long. Yeah," he said, casual, like he was ordering takeout. "We were just checking on Lauren, making sure she didn't trash the place." "Checking on Lauren?" Emily's grip tightened on the phone. "Sarah saw you going through my drawers. My private stuff." "Explain that." Another pause. Then, defensive. "You're paranoid, Em. We weren't going through anything. Just tidying up." "Tidying up my journals?" Her voice rose, cracking. "My bank records? You think I'm stupid?" Diane's voice cut in. She'd been listening, as always. "Emily, you're hysterical. We're just looking out for Jake. You've been so secretive, hiding things. We're family. You don't get to play victim." Emily's jaw clenched. Secretive? She'd been transparent, scrimping every paycheck for their future while Jake blew money on craft beers and Lauren's chaos. "You don't get to rummage through my life, Diane. That's my home, my property." Jake sighed, exasperated. "Em, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. Can we talk about this later?" "No," she snapped. "We're talking now, or I'm going to the apartment and calling security." "Fine, do what you want," Jake muttered, hanging up. Emily's heart pounded as she grabbed her keys. She drove to Lincoln Park, the city's neon lights blurring through her anger. In the elevator, her reflection stared back, tired eyes, clenched jaw. She wasn't just fighting for her apartment. She was fighting for her voice, her place in a marriage that felt like quicksand. The apartment door creaked open, revealing a worse mess than before. Lauren was gone, but the evidence of her reign remained. Sticky floors, a broken lamp, and a faint weed smell lingering in the air. Emily's stomach churned as she checked her desk. Her journals were out of order, pages creased. Her financial folder, tax forms, saving statements, was missing a bank summary. Her pulse spiked. This wasn't random. They were looking for something specific. She called Sarah, who confirmed. "Yeah, Em, I saw Diane stuffing papers in her purse." Jake was pacing, looked nervous. "I didn't want to eavesdrop, but it felt off. Off didn't cover it." Emily's mind spun. Were they after her savings? Trying to control the rental income? Or worse, digging for dirt to use against her? She sank onto the couch, the same one she and Jake had picked out at IKEA, now stained and foreign. Her dream of a cozy home felt like a cruel joke. Back at Diane's, the confrontation was a disaster. Jake shrugged off her questions, claiming, "Mom was just curious about our finances. She's worried we're struggling." Diane doubled down, her voice syrupy with fake concern. "Emily, you're always at work. We thought you might be hiding something, like debt. Or worse." "Worse." Emily's laugh was hollow. "You mean like a husband who lies and a mother-in-law who treats my home like her personal storage unit?" Diane gasped, clutching her pearls, literally. "How dare you? After all we've done, letting you stay here rent-free." "Rent-free?" Emily shot back. "I've been paying for groceries, utilities, and your Wi-Fi while my apartment's trashed. I'm done with this." Jake's silence was deafening. No apology, no defense. Just a week. "You're overreacting, Em." That night, Emily couldn't sleep. The air mattress sagged under her, mirroring her deflating hope. She scrolled the rental app. More complaints from the tenant, now threatening to break the lease. If they sued, she and Jake could lose thousands, maybe the apartment itself. And the missing bank summary gnawed at her. What if Diane was planning something bigger? Then, a glimmer of light. Matt, the new neighbor, a 35-year-old physical therapist in her building. She'd seen him in the lobby, quietly sweeping up leaves or helping Mrs. Carter with her groceries. Yesterday, he'd carried Emily's heavy bags to her door, his shy smile disarming. "Rough day?" he'd asked, no judgment. "Yeah," she'd admitted. "Feels like my life's a mess." "Messes can be fixed," he'd said, handing her the bags. "You'll figure it out." His words echoed now, a tiny anchor in the chaos. Emily wasn't ready to trust again, but Matt's kindness hinted at a world where people didn't betray you for sport. She clutched her journal, writing, "I deserve better. I just don't know how to get there." As dawn broke, Emily made a choice. She wouldn't let Jake and Diane rewrite her story, but what she'd find next would push her to the edge and force her to fight like never before. Will Emily uncover their plan? Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's dive deeper. Drop a comment. Ever had to confront someone you trusted? Emily Harper stood in her Lincoln Park apartment, the chaos of Lauren's parties and Jake's betrayal staring back at her. Sticky floors, a broken lamp, and her journals, her sacred space, violated by Jake and Diane's snooping. Sarah's text echoed in her mind. Diane was stuffing papers in her purse. A missing bank summary, tenant complaints threatening a lawsuit, and the gnawing question, what are they planning? The Chicago skyline glittered outside, but inside, Emily felt like her world was caving in. She wasn't just a nurse keeping patients alive. She was fighting to save her own life. Enough was enough. Emily's hands shook as she locked the apartment door, her resolve hardening like steel. No more playing the good wife, swallowing Diane's jabs or Jake's lies. She drove back to Naperville, the city's neon fading into suburban sprawl, her mind racing. This wasn't just about a trashed apartment or missing papers. It was about her voice, her future, her right to exist without being steamrolled by Jake's family. At Diane's house, Emily found Jake sprawled on the couch, scrolling his phone, oblivious as ever. Diane was in the kitchen, humming over a casserole, her fake cheer a stark contrast to Emily's fury. "We need to talk," Emily said, her voice low but firm, like a surgeon before a critical cut. Jake sighed, not looking up. "Can it wait, Em? I'm wiped." "No, it can't." She dropped her phone on the coffee table, open to the tenant's scathing review. "Our tenant's ready to sue because Lauren turned our home into a nightclub. And you and your mom went through my journals, my bank records." "What?" Diane shuffled in, clutching a spatula like a scepter. "Emily, you're blowing this out of proportion. We were just concerned. You're so distant lately." "Concerned?" Emily's laugh was sharp. "You stole my financial documents. That's not concern. That's a violation." Jake finally sat up, rubbing his neck. "Em, you're paranoid. We were just checking the apartment's paperwork, making sure everything's in order." "Paperwork?" Emily's eyes narrowed. "My journals aren't paperwork. My savings account isn't your business. What are you two after?" Diane's smile tightened, her suburban charm cracking. "You're ungrateful, Emily. We've given you a home here, and you accuse us? Maybe if you were a better wife." "Stop." Emily's voice cut through, steady and cold. "This isn't about me being a wife. This is about you crossing lines. I want my documents back, and I want Lauren out of my apartment. Now." Jake shifted, uneasy. "Em, it's not that simple. Lauren needs." "I don't care what Lauren needs." Emily snapped. "This is our home, Jake. Ours. Not your mom's, not your sister's. If you can't respect that, we've got bigger problems." Diane gasped, clutching her pearls. "How dare you speak to my son like that?" Emily ignored her, locking eyes with Jake. His silence was louder than any argument, a confirmation he'd chosen his family over her. She grabbed her keys. "I'm done waiting for you to act like my husband. I'm handling this myself." She didn't wait for a response. Back in Lincoln Park, Emily called a locksmith, watching as new deadbolts clicked into place, each turn a small reclaiming of her space. She installed a real security camera, its red light a warning to anyone who'd dare cross her again. Then, she emailed the tenant, offering a discount and a heartfelt apology to salvage the lease. "I'm fixing this," she wrote, meaning more than just the apartment. At the hospital, Emily's focus wavered, her usual calm fraying. Her coworker, Nia, noticed. "Girl, you look like you're carrying the world." "Spill." Over lukewarm coffee, Emily confessed. The parties, the snooping, the betrayal. Nia's eyes widened. "They went through your journals? That's next level shady. You need a lawyer, stat." A lawyer. The word felt heavy, final. But Nia was right. Emily needed to protect herself. She found a local attorney, Rachel, who specialized in family disputes. Over Zoom, Rachel's no-nonsense vibe was a lifeline. "Sounds like they're fishing for control. Maybe your savings or the apartment's rental income. Get me any evidence. Texts, emails, footage. We'll build a case." Emily dug through her phone, finding texts from Jake dismissing her concerns, Sarah's warnings, and a screenshot of the tenant's complaint. The security camera's app pinged. A clip from that morning showed Diane lingering outside the apartment, glancing nervously before leaving. Emily's stomach twisted. They weren't done. Then, a spark of hope. Matt, the physical therapist neighbor. She ran into him in the lobby, his arms full of grocery bags for Mrs. Carter upstairs. "Need a hand?" he asked, noticing her tired eyes. "Nah, I'm good," Emily said, but her voice cracked. "Just dealing with some stuff." Matt set the bags down, his gaze steady. "I know a rough day when I see one. If you need an ear or a coffee run, I'm around." His kindness disarmed her, a reminder of what support could feel like. "Thanks, Matt," she said, a faint smile breaking through. "I might take you up on that." Back in her apartment, Emily opened her journal, not to hide, but to plan. She wrote, "I'm not invisible. I'm not their pawn. I'm taking my life back." Rachel's advice echoed. Evidence, boundaries, action. Emily wasn't just fighting for her apartment. She was fighting for herself, for the woman she'd buried under compromises. But as she closed the journal, her phone buzzed. A new text from Sarah. Jake's back at the building. He's got a guy with him. Looks like a locksmith. They're at your door." Emily's heart stopped. Were they trying to break in? What she'd do next would change everything. Can Emily stop them in time? Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's find out. Comment below. Ever had to stand up to someone close? Emily Harper's phone lit up with Sarah's text. Asterisk, Jake's back at the building. He's got a guy with him. Looks like a locksmith. They're at your door. Asterisk, her heart slammed against her ribs as she stood in her Lincoln Park apartment, the new deadbolts gleaming like armor. Jake and Diane had already trashed her trust, rifled through her journals, and endangered their rental income with Lauren's parties. Now they were trying to break in? Emily wasn't the pushover they thought. She was done being silenced. She grabbed her phone, pulling up the security camera app. The footage confirmed it. Jake, fidgeting nervously, stood beside a man in a work jacket, tools in hand, tampering with her lock. Emily's blood boiled, but her nurse's calm kicked in. She dialed building security, her voice steady. "There's an unauthorized attempt to enter my unit. Send someone now." Then she called Rachel, her lawyer, forwarding the footage. "They're escalating," she said. "I need to protect myself." "Got it," Rachel replied. "That's attempted trespassing. File a police report, and we'll use this in court. Stay safe." Security arrived within minutes, catching Jake and the locksmith red-handed. Jake stammered, "This is my apartment," but the guard wasn't buying it. "Sir, the leaseholder's name is Emily Harper. Step away." The locksmith, realizing he'd been misled, packed up and left. Jake slunk off, texting furiously, likely to Diane. Emily watched from her window, her resolve solidifying. This wasn't just about a lock. It was about reclaiming her life. Rachel's investigation uncovered a bombshell. Diane had been pushing Jake to access Emily's savings, claiming she was unstable and might drain their joint account. The missing bank summary? Part of a plan to paint Emily as financially reckless, giving Diane leverage to control the apartment's rental income. Jake, spineless as ever, had gone along, too weak to stand up to his mother. The journals were a fishing expedition for evidence to discredit Emily. The betrayal stung, but it also lit a fire. She wasn't their pawn anymore. Emily filed for divorce, her heart heavy but certain. In court, Jake and Diane's facade crumbled. Diane ranted about family loyalty, but Rachel's evidence, security footage, texts, tenant complaints, was airtight. The judge ruled in Emily's favor. The apartment stayed hers. Jake had to repay half the misused savings, and Diane was warned against further harassment. Emily walked out of the courthouse, the Chicago wind sharp but freeing, like a weight had lifted. Diane didn't quit. A week later, Emily found a laughable invoice in her mailbox, demanding $5,000 for emotional damages to Jake. It was typed in Comic Sans, complete with clip art of a crying emoji. Emily showed it to Rachel, who sent a cease and desist letter, citing defamation. Diane backed off, her threats fizzling like a bad sitcom. Sarah later spotted Jake at a Wicker Park dive bar, whining about his crazy ex to uninterested regulars. The locals, who knew Emily's kindness from her hospital work, shut him down. Justice didn't need a megaphone. It spoke for itself. Emily's life began to bloom. She finished the kitchen remodel, choosing sage green cabinets and warm pendant lights she'd always wanted. The apartment felt like hers again, a sanctuary of hardwood floors and fresh paint. She hosted game nights with coworkers, her laughter echoing where silence once reigned. Her journal filled with new dreams, a trip to the Pacific Northwest, maybe a dog. She wasn't hiding anymore, she was celebrating. Matt, the physical therapist neighbor, became a steady presence. They bonded over coffee runs and rooftop chats, his quiet strength a contrast to Jake's chaos. One evening, as they sat on her balcony, the Chicago skyline twinkling, Matt said, "You're different now. Like you found your spark." Emily smiled, the city lights dancing in her eyes. "I didn't find it. I took it back." Their connection grew, unhurried, rooted in mutual respect. Matt didn't push, didn't demand, just showed up, whether with a thermos of coffee or a bad pun to make her laugh. Emily wasn't chasing love, she was rediscovering herself, and Matt was a welcome part of that journey. One morning, Emily woke to a text from Nia, her hospital coworker. "Girl, you're glowing. Spill the tea." Emily laughed, typing back. "Just living my truth." She glanced at her journal, now filled with affirmations. "I am enough. My voice matters." Outside, spring crept into Chicago, cherry blossoms blooming along Lake Michigan. Emily walked to work, her steps light, the city's pulse matching her own. The final twist? Diane tried one last social media rant, posting about ungrateful daughters-in-law. It backfired, friends unfollowed, and her book club banned her for drama. Jake moved back to Naperville, stuck under Diane's thumb, his charm no match for his choices. Emily didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Her victory was her peace, her home, her life, rebuilt on her terms. So, what's the lesson? You don't need to shout to be heard. Just stand your ground. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and tell us, have you ever fought for your truth? Drop it in the comments.